Have you ever heard a Christian say, "God placed it on my heart" to do a certain thing? Let's take a brief look at what a statement like this might mean and what it says about the relationship between God and human beings. I believe that when we say God places something on our heart, what's really happening is that we are acknowledging the fact that God is able to communicate with us directly. There is no chasm between God and human beings. On the contrary, God is intimately involved in our ideas, our motivations, and our desires. This can only be the case if certain things are true about God. For instance, God must be present in our minds and in our bodies. This makes sense if we understand God to be omnipresent, as many theologians have proposed. Omnipresence means that God is literally everywhere, including in every cell of our bodies. In this context, is it so hard to imagine that God speaks to us? I believe there is a certain stigma that Christians feel about saying that God speaks to them because they don't want to be judged as insane. To believers in God, it's quite a natural thing to say that God spoke to us about this or that, but to unbelievers who don't hear the voice of God, it can seem like a sign of mental illness. The point that I wish to make here is that it is perfectly normal, sane and logical to experience God talking to us. I described this kind of experience in a post on my blog, from which I will now quote. God is capable of producing in human beings a mode of mind that is like a veil. It prevents us being aware of him. He is also able to reveal himself to the human mind by speaking directly to it in a mode similar to, but distinct from, contemplative thought. It is God who makes thoughts arise in our minds, both contemplative thoughts and those thoughts that are his speech to us. We can experience thoughts that are ours and thoughts that are God's. They are similar but distinct, and all are ultimately from God. As you may recall from an earlier video, I like to refer to God as the cosmic animator, in control of all activity in existence, which I refer to as his cosmic playground. He is a living God, and he exists as boundless being in this single eternal moment. As I have already indicated, there is no separateness between God and any of his creation. It is therefore logical that as well as animating everything in the macrocosm, such as the orbits of planets and the movement of other celestial bodies, God is also animating everything in the microcosm, such as the beating of our hearts, the growing of our hair, the digestion of our food, and yes, even the working of our minds. There is a certain mystery about what exactly the mind is, but I believe that neuroscientists are quite wrong when they use language that implies that the mind is synonymous with the brain. There is a spiritual dimension to thought, and I'm quite sure that thought has its origins in God rather than in the physical matter of the brain. I realise this understanding has profound implications for secular societies that adhere to a materialist ideology. We seem to think that scanning brains holds the key to understanding the nature of thought and belief. Psychiatrists prescribe drugs that target chemicals in our brains in order to try to counteract mental states that are seen as brain disorders. Perhaps the reason why there are so few recoveries from so-called mental illnesses is because they are seen in a materialistic rather than a spiritual way. God communicates with different people in different ways. Perhaps not every Christian hears the voice of God in the way that I have described, and that's perfectly okay. God is speaking to everyone all the time, when we read, when we converse, when we listen to music, and when we consider, analyse and reflect. God also talks to people in more dramatic ways, like dreams and visions. But if God speaks to your mind directly in an intimate and personal way, it doesn't mean you are crazy. It just means that you are in touch with the God who created you, sustains you, and animates your life. Have you ever had the experience of God talking directly to your mind? Do you believe such an experience is even possible? Feel free to leave your thoughts in the comments below. Over the course of the next few videos, we will look at how God's omnipresence relates to the Christian worldview. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. This video series accompanies my new book titled God's Grand Game, which is available now from all major retailers. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and subscribe and ring the bell to be notified of future videos.